Hello and welcome to Comedy in a Nutshell. But who am I to talk about comedy? Well, I've gathered all the information I've got on seeing over 1,000 comedians perform live over the last few decades, including ticket stubs, photographs, and what they've said about me, and you can find all of that important and exciting information on my website, thecomedynerd.com. I love talking to the people in comedy about comedy, so if you like to hear what they have to say as much as I do, then please like, subscribe, rate, review, and share the podcast. Thank you. My guest this episode was already well established as an actor for film, television and theatre, but it's her more recent forays into stand-up comedy that brought her to my attention, an area in which she's already marked herself out as one to watch. It's actor and stand-up comedian Thomasin Lockwood. Are you happy?
I think I'm good. Yeah, let's do it.
First of all, tell me, how did comedy come into your life?
As in performing it?
No, just how did you discover comedy? Like myself, it was gathered around the TV at Christmas with the family and everyone watching the Christmas specials, things like that, or it might be on the radio, or it might be someone played you a record one day.
Oh, I know what it is. My dad was a big fan of Monty Python, and one of my earliest memories is them playing the Monty Python sketch, The Ministry of Silly Walks.
Yeah.
And I think my parents had never seen me laugh more. And it was like a really special thing. And I remember afterwards being like, I want more of that. But obviously the sketches had like the silly walk, so they didn't really have anything else they could show me. And I remember being really sad that like that was all there was of the silly walking.
What sort of spurred you on the path to performance?
I always really liked the Monty Python that I saw, like old sitcoms. Friends was on repeat in my household, so lots of like American sitcom humor. I always really liked the physical comedy, and I think my mum was a big influence in that she really liked Laurel and Hardy. So the really like old school clowning was always such a big appeal to me. But in terms of performing, I always wanted to be an actor first. I loved being on stage, and acting was like my first instinct.
Yeah.
And I ended up working really, really hard on my singing and dancing, and got into one of the top, if not the top at the time. I went in musical theatre colleges to do a degree there. And comedy kind of like, it came later for me. I always really liked it, but I think I knew it was a strength of mine, but in terms of following stand-up comedy, that just looked so difficult to me. And after doing, or at least trying, a career in musical theatre, I've realised, like nothing is ever going to be as hard as musical theatre. So in coming to do stand-up theatre, it's actually kind of been helpful, because I feel like trying to be in the acting industry, trying to be like a singer and dancer, has given me such an armour that means that I feel like I can take a lot of the pitfalls of stand-up comedy with a pinch of salt in maybe a way I wouldn't have before.
Right. So what turned you from acting to comedy specifically? Were you acting in particularly comedic roles?
I remember at drama school, it was my first year at drama school, we were doing the first ever acting project where you have to perform in front of like the whole school for the first time. And I was really nervous. The play was a play. Am I allowed to swear, by the way?
Yeah. Do what you like.
It was a play called Bollocks, and it was about this soldier who in battle had his genitals blown off in battle. And I remember reading it at the time and thinking, I can't tell whether this is a comedy or this is meant to be serious. And obviously I wish I could go back in time to my 19-year-old self and be like, it's both, bitch. But like, I remember really struggling with the text, and I think the director also struggled to kind of get his idea across. And I remember the first scene I was in, a character says to my character something about like me looking particularly nice that day. My line was, "Oh, give over." And I said that line, and I don't know what I did, Mark, how I said it, but the whole school burst into laughter, and I got this wave of laughter on the stage, and I physically jumped because I was so surprised, because I was trying to be serious. I wasn't trying to make them laugh. I was trying to act, and I think I just learned more and more as I was on stage. It was easier for me to get a laugh than to move someone through song or to look sexy dancing, and I got better and better at controlling that, I think.
Right.
And I tried for a few years to really give acting a go, like as best as I could with like, my lack of connections and being bloody poor in London. And I loved it and I still love it. I still love acting, still love musical theatre. But one day I said to my agent, like, I want to do more comedy. And he said, like, it's not really enough for you to just say, I want to do comedy. You have to prove to people you have funny bones. So guess what? There's a lot of funny people out there. So I suggest you do a stand-up course. And he actually sent me the details of the comedy school. Have you heard of it?
No.
It's partly a charity as well. It's a really great stand-up course. There I met my mentor, Mr. C, and it's really well run because they basically anyone can sign up to learn how to do stand-up, and then you do a showcase at the end at the Backyard Comedy Theatre in Bethnal Green. And you can raise money for like people for knife crime, for people who have been rehabilitated out of prison. So you can get up there and do stand up, and even if it goes really wrong, you can be like, well, I raised money for charity, so no harm there. So I did that, and I was really, really nervous, but I fell in love with it. And I think the thing with acting is you can really like do the best audition ever, but maybe if you haven't got the right look or know the right people, it can stop you from getting a job. There's times where I've heard, oh, they really loved you, but actually they needed someone a bit taller, or you know what, they hired more brunettes in the end for this job because of this. Like, whereas with comedy, I realized like I am already perfect. I don't have to change my hair, don't have to change my weight, I don't have to change how I talk. I just have to be funny. And that just is obviously a huge mark. It's all in my control in a way that a lot of the acting and musical theatre industry didn't feel for me.
Yeah, it's true. It's something that I think Jamie Allison told me that if you're doing stand-up, what you want to do is go out on stage and entertain people. Well, you can do that day one. You just go and do it. So
yeah, it feels like one of the last few art forms. It sounds wanky calling it an art form, but like one of the last few like entertainment pieces of that industry that isn't elitist. It probably is the further you go up the field, like with all things. But
right.
I feel like you could be from anywhere doing anything, and you could walk onto an open mic night at comedy, and yes, like with every part of the entertainment industry, the more connection, the more well off you are, the easier it is. But also, if you're not funny, then you're not funny.
Yeah. So at the end of your course at Backyard, how was the showcase? Did it go well? Did you get feedback from it?
It went so great. It was like, it was an audience of like family and friends for everybody. So it's a very warm audience. But I've got it recorded, and I still watch it from time to time, and I just like, I look so comfortable on stage. It's a real like beginner's luck kind of energy. I'm just kind of going for it, and it looks great. But what had helped is actually during the course, I actually did my first official stand-up gig at another open mic variety night.
Right.
And that was it was like a variety night for charity, and I signed up and was like, I could do comedy, I'm learning comedy right now. And I signed up to do a 10-minute set, which is like way too much time on stage. I think I ended up doing like a 7-minute. But yeah, I think the fact that I was used to being on stage and like I knew how to hold a microphone, things that can really throw people off maybe their first time on stage, like not having that throw me off really helped.
Yeah.
I'm sure lots of people will say when they first go on stage in front of like all the big lights, they're like, oh my God, I can't see anyone. I can't it's like darkness where I'm at, like all the lights are on me and I can't see anyone in the crowd. And that if you don't know that's coming, can throw you off so much. So yeah, I think it was a real like catapult, I think, having that previous experience.
Yeah. And how was it having completed the course and then going out looking for bookings for your own slot separate when it's not friends and family in the audience? How was going on stage to a group of strangers? Do you get nerves? Do you get anxiety? Do you still?
Always. I think, I always get nervous. I always get excited. I always do. Sometimes more for some gigs, sometimes less for others. But I went to do a bringer night recently because I really wanted to try through some material that seemed on page hopeless, but there was only one way to find out. So I thought I'll go to a bringer night. And even then I was, my leg was shaking. I was like, nervous. And I think one of the lessons for me when I started getting out there after the comedy course was having to let my material catch up to my stage presence, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, I felt like I looked confident on stage, and I knew how to project and to perform, but my actual material was still like at such an early stage. So a lot of the feedback I'd often get was, oh, you're really likable and you're really good to listen to and you're really engaging, but like like the laughs weren't always as even as the confidence.
We like you, but be funnier.
Yeah, I think so. Like, it's kind of like you really had me thinking you were going somewhere with that, but you weren't. Yeah.
Was doing comedy then, after doing acting, was it what you expected it to be? Were there any big surprises?
It was what I expected it to be in terms of how liberating it felt. Like I got addicted, and people tell you, you know, once you start, like either you'll never do it again, or you get the bug and you get addicted, and you know, always looking for gigs, always wanting to try stuff, always wanting to get out there. It was all what I expected to be in terms of being in my control. I think, I don't know whether to say this. I think naively, I expected it to be maybe a bit kinder.
Right.
And maybe a bit less elitist. It is a bit less elitist, but actually, like, the more I see higher up, like Edinburgh Fringe is like a huge example of this, the more I'm like, oh, actually, like, all aspects of the entertainment industry have their issues with you know, working class, poorer, or less you know, advantaged voices coming through. Yeah, I think I expected people to be kinder, not the audience, but my peers, I should say.
Okay. Yeah, well, it's still one person getting a gig is someone else not getting a gig. So
yeah, I think, you know, it's why I've kind of lately I've steered clear of competitions and you know, the gong shows and things, because I think I really appreciated that I don't miss with auditioning as an actor. I still do audition, I still work as an actor, but one thing that's always tough is you could do the best audition of your life, but still only one person out of like sometimes hundreds gets the job. And I think what I really like with comedy is we can all do a great bill, and there might be one person who stormed it more than others. Everybody might be great, but it might be like, actually, the audience really liked the MC tonight, and it doesn't stop you working. Like, you still did the bill, you still, you know, got paid, or you still got like whatever you got out of it. Whereas competitions really brings back a like that unpleasant feeling of, oh, I failed. And I remember, so I'm sure you might remember, I did a split bill with Roman on the Free Fringe last year. And we got onto the Edinburgh Fringe Best of Fringe lineup, and I was so excited to do that show. And there were some industry people there watching, and I didn't really have any expectations for after. I didn't really know what to expect, but I think I expected something and did not get anything. And I remember feeling so down for months. And from where everyone else was sitting, they were like, you did a great gig. You had a great time at like the Pleasance Theatre in London. And like, you know, you've just come off the back of a really, for your first time, like a very successful Fringe run. Yeah. And I wasn't happy because of that experience. And I think like I'm really trying to protect myself going forward with comedy, in that if I don't do a competition and don't get seen by the right people, at least at this stage with where I'm at, I'm fine with that. Because at the end of the day, as another comedian said to me very wisely, no one's making you do this. Yeah. So you better make sure you're having a good time. And I think for me right now, my version of having a good time with comedy is not putting myself in a like competition mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel like it's easy to fall into the idea that it's not fun, it is an audition, because you are ultimately trying to get the validation from the audience? But if you're also looking to impress agents or promoters as well that you might know, or reviewers that you might know that are in, do you feel like it changes from a fun night of larking about into another audition?
I think it really can. I think if you want to get ahead, you have to, like, if you want to get ahead, you have to invite reviews, you have to invite industry people, you have to do competitions.
Hmm.
And if you want to do more of it and want to keep doing more of what you love, you have to do that stuff. So
Yeah.
it's this real, for want of a better word, real mind fuck, because you want to do what you enjoy. But in order to do that, you kind of have to turn it into this like other thing. And I just think where I'm at right now, maybe I'm just not mentally mature enough to. I hope maybe one day I will. I can invite reviewers and do competitions and sincerely be like, I don't care. Um, and I think probably that attitude is really, really helpful. And I find I often do better at the gigs where I'm a bit more of, I don't care, you know?
Yeah. I think it's an interesting point, and this has come up before on this podcast, because where performer feeds off the audience's energy, so too does the audience react to how the performer is.
Yeah.
So if you're having a lot of fun, if you relax and just enjoy yourself, then the audience enjoys it more, and therefore everyone's happy. But if you are seeing it, like, for want of a better phrase, if you're seeing it as an audition, if you're physically trying to impress people instead of just having your own good time,
Mark, that's such a good
I think people can detect it, you know?
They absolutely can. You're absolutely right. Like an audience can smell inauthenticity a mile off. Like if you're tense before you're saying a word, like they can see it. Like it's so interesting. But you're absolutely right. It's this like symbiotic thing with the audience. And actually, if you do relax and enjoy yourself, so does the audience. It's so interesting. It's so true. Yeah.
Well, what about you've mentioned your split bill with Roman, and then this year you did a solo show. So what was your festival experience last year and this year? How do they compare? How is doing the Edinburgh Fringe overall for you?
Well, you know what? Firstly, I just want to say, like, the free fringe, PBH free fringe, is just the best, because there is no way I could have afforded to have done it without them. So, like, first of all, I just love them forever for all they do. It's absolutely thankless. They got a lot of mud slung their way, and at the end of the day, they're just performers who wanted to make it fairer. And I finished reading Peter Buckley Hill's book recently, and I'm like a real convert to that cause at the moment. So we did both. I did both last year and this year on the free fringe. Doing it with Roman with the split bill, like we were in we were in the basement of a burrito restaurant, and you know, we weren't listed on the Edinburgh Fringe website or app officially. We were just on the free fringe. We just had flyers, and we got really good sized crowds in, like sometimes like in the 50s. And I think partly it's because we were, as far as split bills go, quite different. You know, he's a black man, I'm a white woman, and like our subject matters were quite similar, like dating, work, but coming at it from such different angles. So I think we were just, it was a really strong show. But I honestly have to give a lot of that year's success, and it was a success. We made a profit, we had a great time. A lot of that is down to Roman Harris. I just think he's the most charismatic flyer I've ever seen. I think he's got such a can-do attitude. You know, like we weren't really like, we went with such low expectations, which I think helps. Like I was thinking maybe there'll be like 6 people in the crowd. And the first day when we finished, because at the end of Free Fringe, you know, we asked for donations, we were sat at the table in this burrito restaurant with like our hands full of cash from the donations, just a little bit like shell-shocked. And I remember we were both like, what do we do? What do we do with this? What do we do? And like hadn't even like had like a plan for the donations, like who holds it, how do we do that? Because so it was really wonderful, and I felt really proud of my material, and it was just really fantastic. This year I did 45 minutes and with a 15-minute support, and it was different every day. I was really happy you got to see it with Roman again. That was really great. And I nearly didn't go, but Roman encouraged me to. He was kind of like, you know, you want to keep moving forward, you want to keep getting better, you've got to do the stuff that scares you. And it scared me doing it by myself, because I just, you know, and I said to him, I was like, I just feel like I can't do without you. Like, who will hold the card reader? who will, you know, who will do the charismatic flyering? I can't do it without you. And it was really nice to prove to myself that actually I could. And I really liked my venue this year. It was at like the Dog House Hotel, really lovely hotel, and the staff were just so nice. And yeah, I had like a really tranquil time. I didn't really go out and socialize with other comedians, but I did have a lot of friends come and surprise me, come and support me. I have some friends in Scotland, so it still felt really loving. And I'm not so bad at flyering, it turns out. Yeah, got people in.
Yeah. What about the festival in general? Because as well as doing your own show, you're competing with 3,500 other shows.
Yeah.
So what was your broader festival experience?
I didn't really think about the competing part, to be honest, which maybe I should have. But I think this year I didn't see as many shows I liked as I did last year. Last year I really packed in a lot of shows. I like knew exactly who I was going to see and had more of like an itinerary. Whereas this year I kind of let myself be led by certain things. I saw like a couple of shows that I really wanted to see, but I kind of went with the flow, and I didn't really see as like many shows that maybe I would have liked. So yeah, that was that it was like I didn't, but I'm talking more about like I saw plays, I saw music, I saw improv. Like I really tried to branch out and see like lots of different things, not just comedy.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So next year I want more of a plan, but it's bloody expensive. Like you go see like one or two comedians that you really, really like, and that's like it feels like half your budget's blown, you know? So I don't know how you did. You saw a lot of shows. How many shows did you see?
138.
How many of them were free shows? Like how many did you pay for?
Well, I was volunteering with the Ish Awards, so half of them were comped and half of them I paid.
Oh,
the free shows I gave money to.
Yes, good. Yeah.
And then the paid ones I tried to avoid paying wherever possible.
Well, you're a comedy connoisseur, Mark. I feel like you like my friend was reviewing I can't remember what website she was reviewing for, but it was a website that's only around for Edinburgh Fringe. It's like specifically for Edinburgh Fringe shows. And I think like I mean, like you should definitely have a column or something with like The Guardian by now, surely. You've seen like I've never seen anyone more well versed with the comedy scene in terms of like the like what's happening from the ground up. I think it's great. So
yeah, well, I appreciate it. I'm working on it.
Yeah. How were the Ish Awards? Tell me more about that.
It was fantastic. We had an award ceremony at the Three Sisters. Both the newcomer and the main award got tied.
Oh,
Amazing.
Fantastic.
So best newcomer was Dan Tiernan and Fiona Ridgewell both.
Oh my God. So I saw Dan Tiernan at the Backyard, and he was, my God, he was a real example for me of like the I don't care kind of attitude. Like he had two separate industry people in to see him do a 10-minute set at the Backyard. And he blew the crowd away. And I remember talking to him after, he's like, oh, how did it go? And he was like, I don't think it'll work out with either of them. I turned them both down. And I was like, oh my God. Wow, like you're just doing your own thing, and like it's really served him.
No, I saw him do a spot, and then I saw him do a preview of his show. And he got a lot of really good reviews, and he won that one as well. And
he smashed it.
Trying to remember who got the best show. Can't even remember now. I mean, was it that long ago?
Oh, Julia Masley.
Yes.
And Paul Foot as well. That was another show I was desperate to see, Julia Masley's show, and I it was all sold out. I couldn't get it, but I've heard that was like the pinnacle of what a fringe show should be, and it was like mad, niche, and brilliant, and at 1 a.m.
It's basically a night of improv, so it's different every night.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm very jealous. I think, you know, with improv shows, I think that can be like the real, like, that's the thrill of it, isn't it? Because when it's really great, it's like such an achievement.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, you see, because it's a risk, isn't it?
Absolutely. And if you're in a group, even if you're having an off night, you usually have other people who can like tag in and lift you up. But
yeah,
it's just you. Like, poof, it's yeah.
And that's interesting because some stand-ups now do a whole night of improvised comedy based on do a whole night of crowd work. People like Russell Hicks might do that. But when you see a good troupe, like you say, if one is flagging or can't find the direction, you've got 3 or 4 people who've got moments of inspiration who can come in and they can lift the whole game and keep it afloat, you know. I saw one troupe who was this good that they spent most of the time trying to undermine the other people in the troupe to make it funnier because they were tripping them up, to make life more difficult for them by being more abstract and more silly.
That is expert level improv. Oh my goodness. I saw the Doctor Who improvised episode, and that was great. I haven't really watched Doctor Who since like the David Tennant era, but yeah, that was incredible level of improv. And there were a few moments where like one person would be like, "Hello, I'm this character," and one person would be like, "Oh, I thought that's what I was doing right now, but okay, cool." Like, you know, but there's kind of moments that like, I think that's what makes improv special, is when you see like the human kind of like, oh fuck, okay, like now we're gonna you see the work. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I saw them at the Leicester Comedy Festival. It was so funny.
And they're clever. They kind of like parody Doctor Who, but also like give such love for it. And, you know, and the fact that they have the person improvising the music as well on the side, like, just, it's brilliant. That was a show I really loved this year, actually.
Yeah.
I know I was like, oh, I didn't see much I liked, but like, I feel like whatever you see, you'll end up like being like, oh, there's 10 shows that I really wanted to see that I didn't get to see. Like, it's just there's so many great people out there.
Oh yeah. Like after 138 shows, I still came away going, damn, I wish I had more time. I didn't get to see this and this and this.
Yeah. My favorites was, one of my favorite comedians I saw was Jamie Allerton's show, actually. Did you see that?
Yeah.
The movies. I just thought it was so brilliantly structured, and it was in such a weird space, but I just think, I'm just such a big fan of Jamie. I think he's so great, and someone who has got that stage presence of being so likable, but also like follows it up with such strong material. That was a really good show.
See, that's something you've mentioned there, and you brought it up a little bit earlier about yourself, about the audience liking the individual. And I particularly like comedians who express their joy on stage, and it comes back, I suppose, to what I said about, you know, the audience can feel if the performer's having a good time. I really like the joyous performers. So people like yourself, people like Roman, who's just got a smile all throughout. He's loving it. Jamie is very boisterous and energetic, but he's making jokes for himself. Are you mindful of that character? Is that, you know, is that something that you want to be sure to put across?
Oh, that's a good question. To be honest, I don't think I could have it any other way. I don't think I can be another way. And I think the more I've done it, the more people have pointed out to me, like I feel like it's really big-headed when I'm like, oh, I'm really likable, but it's just something people have said to me. And I think the more that I can see people reacting to that, the more I want to give that and respond. But, you know, I see some really sarcastic performers, or really like performers who like insult the crowd and get away with it, and I really admire that, because I don't have it in me to do that. I don't think that's me. I don't think I could do it even if I tried. So for me, it kind of comes back to the acting. I remember doing a show for a week at drama school where it was a really depressing show, and I just went home depressed every day. And then when I did The Music Man, and that was such a joyous musical that I came home so happy every night that I was like, I just want to do stuff that gives me joy, because like joy begets joy. So I want to, like, you know, I kind of want to be that comedian that looks on the bright side, and I don't want to be too cynical. And or even too much of a character. Like Nick Everett is another comedian on the scene who I think is like, I just wish he was like on TV. I just think he's so brilliant at the character that he does.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't quite do that, or I can't commit to it for an hour like he can, that's for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
We've talked a little bit about competition, and we talked about the competitive nature of the Fringe as well. But what about, you did Funny Women, you were longlisted for Writing and Stage Awards last year. So how do you feel about competitions? Are you able to see it as another gig? Are you able to take yourself out of it? Can you talk to the people who you're competing against and see yourselves as all in the same boat, that sort of thing?
I mean, Funny Women was a bit different because it was all done via Zoom. So it's not like you could kind of like meet people at the bar and kind of be like, oh, what's your story, and get to know people. Like,
right.
So it did feel a little bit more like transactionary, you know? Like you were encouraged to laugh down your mic down the Zoom, but like I wasn't able to have much of a connection. But what I did do is I researched some other, because I also was on Zoom for So You Think You're Funny. That was when like COVID was happening. I got to the semi-finals. I was also on Zoom, and I would watch some of the semi-finals before my slot. And when I was watching it from an audience point of view, I absolutely loved it. I'd be like, oh my God, like Carla Gordon is another comedian I love. And like seeing her smash it, I was like, oh, like I feel like she should have been she didn't even make it to the semi-finals of So You Think You're Funny. I don't think. And honestly, I was like, I would have had a peg for a finalist. She's bloody brilliant. And I think watching it as an audience point of view, it's a lot easier to just see it as a gig and have fun. But with the competition like that, I think it's that, so many of the comedians out there that you love and look up to, they were the winner of this award and the runner up to this award, and you really do see it as this path to getting further and doing more gigs, getting better gigs, getting agents and getting seen in front of industry people. So it can feel like it's not like a competition with other people in terms of like hating on anyone who does better or your peers. Like I would never give that energy. It's more like an internal feeling like a failure when you don't get further. Like, I always try to be as supportive as I can for anyone in competitions, but you can really kind of like internalize your own journey, and like you're not really thinking about other people. You're kind of just thinking about yourself until you get the result in, and then you're like, I suck. With the long listing award, I actually didn't know I had made the long list of the writing award. They didn't email me. I found out after the whole competition had ended. So
wow.
That was nice, because I was like, oh yay. Like I didn't have any expectations. So to know that like my name had even made it, I was like, oh, thank you. So maybe that's the way I should do it. Maybe I should just like, I don't know, not find out till after.
When did you start stand-up?
Oh, I did my first gig in the summer of 2019, but then I took like, I think just over a year out during the pandemic. So technically like it's like 4 years since I started. Is that right? 4 years? 2019, 2020. Oh God, technically 5 years, but it feels more like 3.5, 4 years because I just wasn't doing it. And then also I have last year, I mean, one of the reasons why I initially wasn't going to go to do the Free Fringe this year was because I've been distracted with like another project, which is I'm getting a book published. Hopefully the end of this month, but probably the start of next month, because I've been slow with my editor once again. And I just haven't been focusing as much on stand-up comedy. So this is a really long answer to such a simple question mark. The problem I have when people go, how long have you been going for? Is I feel like it's a meter of, so how good are you? How experienced are you? But actually, just because I did my first gig in 2019, I feel like I have to like spend 5 minutes explaining to people, yes, but these are the reasons why I'm not because I'm busy with that. And like, so... I really hate answering that question, because then I have to talk for 5 fucking minutes about like my insecurities around that question. There you go. I'm done. Question answered. 2019.
But you started in 2019, and like you say, you took time off over the pandemic, and then we've also mentioned about you doing things like So You Think You're Funny over Zoom. Did you do much comedy over Zoom?
No, I did one gig, and it went so badly. One of the comedians heckled me. Like, how is that possible? But it happened. So I kind of found it, I found it like I found it a bit de-energizing. So I just told myself, like, until things are back to quote unquote normal, I'll just stay away from comedy. And that was totally the right call and totally fine for me. And then getting back into it took a little while, because obviously with every comedian off work, you found that like people were taking like gigs that maybe they'd usually turn down just to try and get back on stage and try all this new material. So like gigs that it was usually fairly easy for me to get, I was finding like a lot more competition, because like everyone had been not doing it. So it took maybe like a year to go back to it.
So tell me about your book.
Oh, so you know what? It was actually that that Zoom comedy thing that the book came about. It was like an LGBTQ themed comedy stand-up thing on Zoom. It went really badly, and I just remember thinking like, "Oh, this was bollocks." And I found myself later that night, just to try and kind of energize myself and cheer myself up. I went onto my email, and I'm signed up to the Comedy Crowd newsletter. Have you heard of it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, honestly, like it's such a brilliant newsletter. And I saw that they said that Vulpine Press are taking in new submissions. Vulpine Press, a very small independent publisher. They're looking for comedy book submissions. So I sent them an idea for a book called Nan, I Think I'm Bi. And the book is hilarious anecdotes of people who are bisexual or bi-curious, or at least at one point thought they were, and turns out nope. And they emailed me asking me for more, and I did not have any more. There was nothing. So I ran away and very quickly interviewed a couple of people, wrote 10,000 words, sent it off to them, and they were like, great, let's see the rest of the book. And I was like, there is no rest of the book. Like, this is it. So they were like, great, okay, well, let's sign the contract and like get it out as soon as you can. And like, basically they just kept saying yes, Mark. And I kept thinking like, oh, okay, the next email I get back from them, they're going to be like, you've wasted our time. Like, get lost. Like, I never felt like more of a loser than when I submitted that 10,000 words to them. I was like, this is like, what am I thinking? Like, because, I'm not even out to my family. So I was just like, why would I write a book about this? Which is why the book is called Nan, I Think I'm Bi. Because I'm like, well, I've got to tell her somehow. And I think I put that in like the application to them. So I think it was good at getting their attention. But yeah, the book it's done. And my editor kind of had to break it to me that like, I hope you're aware that this thing is also like, it's a memoir. It's not just interviews with people, but it's about you. And it's taken me a while to write because, like, Mark, this is no War and Peace. Do you know what I mean? I'm very proud of it, but it is a silly little book. And it's just taken me ages to get it done because I've been working full time. I've been doing some stand-up. I've been doing acting. I've been doing heaps of things. And I think in a way I've also, like, now that the book is done, I've never been slower to reply to my editor because it's just getting so real. And it's not just about a funny comedy book. It's also about like having to come out and having to kind of like be out. That's been a lot. That's the book.
Would they listen to this?
Oh, maybe. This is fairly sanitized for me compared to the book. I tell you what, they know I'm writing a book because, like the idiot I am, I was so bloody excited once I signed the contract that I put it on social media, like, I'm gonna write a book, and like did not realize it would take 2 fucking years. Everyone's like, she was lying. But anyway, my family like, how's the book going? What's it about? My dad was like, can't wait to have it on my shelf, and I'm like, oh no, like no. So I think ultimately they'll be okay with it, but for the ones that won't, I'm just going to tell them that the contract fell through. I'll be like, oh, it was a scam, Vulpine Press, they're just, got the scammers. I think that's going to be the best thing to do, Mark, the kindest option. It was interesting. Some people I interviewed, like, they were so easy to interview and so great and so open. I'm sure you feel this as a podcaster. Some things you have more chemistry or they give better answers, but like there was one guy I interviewed and I insisted on putting him in the book, but he was so tense, like, he'd be like, so what do you want to know? And but I was kind of like, I have to put you in this book because I feel like you represent so many people who are still so like defensive and figuring themselves out because they're not comfortable with it yet. And I feel like actually if I didn't represent this in the book, I wouldn't be doing people a solid because not everyone is really out and easy to talk about it. So, but yeah, like, did it feel like doing this podcast? How many episodes in are you into like the whole interviewing people?
50 plus.
Yeah. Do you feel like your interview technique has changed at all?
Completely. Yeah. I mean, I had in my mind what I wanted going in, so I was more or less just kept leading in that direction. But now I'm a lot more relaxed. I only pace for an hour now instead of 2 hours.
Getting that down, yeah.
This is my therapy now. This gets me to talk to people.
So tell me, I'm sure people have asked you, so forgive me if I'm like repeating other things from other podcasts, but like, what's your story with comedy? So have you been on stage with it before?
Oh yeah, long time ago. I was in a comedy band for a while, a long time ago. I think we went into it seriously, but it was such a shambles that it came out funny. There's a lot of props and everything, and there would be a mess and chaos, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But we were never going to get a contract. We were that close to playing the Leeds Festival once, and they pulled out, which is annoying. We played a gig in Berlin.
Ah.
That was the last thing I did. That was about 2004. That was my last show.
Do you have any CD?
Yeah, we got a CD. The cover art was done by Yuri Geller.
Oh, what? This is crazy. Well, how am I just finding this out about you?
Well, I had my moment in the sun. I tried to stand up. One time I went to a pub, I think an open mic night, and no one was getting up and doing anything. So I thought, this is completely out of character for me. I thought, I'll get up. I'll throw a couple of jokes. I didn't have any jokes. I just nicked someone else's joke.
Oh, okay.
I'll throw a couple of jokes out there. So I just got up and I threw in a couple of someone else's jokes, some TV comic. I threw in a couple of old gags. But people liked it. So I thought, well, that was quite fun. Maybe I'll have a go and write my own stuff. And then I did. And I did a quick open mic that I didn't tell anyone around, and completely bombed, and never said, right, I'm out.
Fair enough.
But I still wrote jokes. I've got loads of them on my phone. I've probably got about 20 minutes on my phone.
Really?
Yeah.
Would you ever put it in writing somehow, like in tweets or TikTok or like a blog or book?
I post them on my Instagram now and then. I put some one-liners on there. Sometimes they're funny, and sometimes I read them a week later and go, why'd you put that on there? It's so stupid.
But I honestly, I think that about this book. Like, honestly, like it was like the second draft of my book had been done, and like I'd been really chill with my editor up until that point, but I kind of he needed to talk me down from a ledge. I was just like, was any of this ever funny? Like, is any of this making any sense? Like, you just look at something for so long, or you don't look at it enough, and then you come back to it and you're like, what? I think when something is written down, it's like so like, it's so concrete. So I understand you looking at like an Instagram thing and being like, I want to write that. So you can't really write it off in the same way as if you just said it offhand on a microphone on stage. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you can laugh it off and then everyone will forget it.
Yeah.
So with your career in stand-up so far, what have been the best and worst moments for you?
Oh man, it's really hard to pick. There are ups and downs. Honestly, best moments are just whenever I have a gig and come off with that giddy, excited feeling. And honestly, I've had that at like Up the Creek doing a gong show. I've had that at the Backyard. I've had that at the Bill Murray. But I've also had that at like tiny bringer gigs or gigs with like 8 people in the audience. Like, I think it's going to sound really wanky, but in a way, I have that same feeling coming off a smaller gig as you do maybe one of the bigger, quote unquote, more important or significant gigs. It's such a joy to feel because it makes me realize that like at whatever level I do this, it's going to make me happy. And for me, that is the goal. Like I always tell myself, if this is all it will ever be, if I only ever stay at this level, will I be happy with it? If the answer is yes, then like I've already won. So that's God, I sound like such a wanker, but it's kind of like, it's true, because I spent so much of my acting and musical theatre career thinking, when I get the big break, I'll be happy. When I get the big break, all this misery will have paid off. And I really don't want to feel that way with comedy. I don't want it to ruin it. Worst moments, different story. There's quite a few for that too. I think like, I did a gong show at the Top Secret Comedy Club and got booed off the stage after 30 seconds. Everybody was wasted, but that was like that was more funny though. Like it was terrible. My friend came and was horrified, but it was kind of like such a parody of itself that it was kind of funny to me. But another gig I did in Kent, that was a really, really bad gig. It was a private event at a pizza restaurant, but the owners had like set the tables out like a medieval banquet or like a wedding table arrangement. Like there was no clear stage and audience. Right. So either you could get your mic and like walk down an aisle talking to the crowd, or you could stand in a corner. And this crowd, they'd clearly like, and I don't mean this as like any insult to them, they're clearly like never seen any live comedy before, so they just didn't know how to behave, and they all like knew each other, so they all like would start talking or joking to themselves or like getting really like giddy over like random things with each other than like giving the act kind of like respect.
Yeah.
And this comedian who I saw, I won't name, who was like a significant name bombed, and then like when got heckled, basically like fed up with the whole situation, heckled back. And then the MC came on to tell off the crowd. So then I went to stage after, this incredible act bombed. The MC told off the crowd, and they're all just sitting there with their arms folded, looking at me like, meh, like what, like told off kids. So I obviously did a 10-minute set within like 5 minutes because nobody was fucking laughing. And but you know what? I came on stage with such hope, Mark, because I thought to myself, you know what? I've just got to get out my first joke. My first joke is a dirty joke. It's a stupid joke, but they're going to like it. I know they will. So I just got to do that, and then I'll have them, and then I can go from there.
Yeah.
So I was just about to do the punchline of my joke, and the owner of the bar walked up to me and started giving me advice on how to hold the mic. And then, like, before I could even, like, answer or say anything or even try and, like, banter my way out of it, then walked straight into the staff room and left the area. So I'm like stood there staring at the audience. They're staring at me and they're like, well, get on with it. Like, and I'm like, what? So it totally ruined any kind of like build up I had. And God, it was a disaster. Absolute disaster. And I got paid 30 quid for it and went on the train feeling very sorry for myself. Yeah.
Well, you got paid.
You know what? I got paid to make no one laugh. So
Well, that's easy to do, isn't it?
yeah, I know, it was an easy day's work.
How do you feel about criticism, either be it in the room, like in heckling, or reviews? How do you feel about that kind of criticism?
Oh, I don't, you know what, in all honesty, I don't think I've experienced enough of either to really have strong feelings on it. Touch wood. There's no such thing as I've heard it before. There's no such thing as a sober heckler, and I can't remember who said it, but I really thought, that's such a good way of looking at it, because sometimes people will shout stuff out in your gig, and to me, I'm like, good. That means they're paying attention. Like if they're saying something relevant, but if they're drunk and like yelling crap or like insulting you, then like I feel like things have to either be really bad for them or really bad for you in what you're doing on stage. So. Kind of, I feel like it depends on the situation. The worst heckle I got was from a guy in the audience who thought I was a member of staff at the pub and like yelled at me for not helping him carry his drinks to his seat, which he then dropped. So then when I got on stage, he like hated me. So he like sarcastically yelled at one point like, "Oh, this is so great," and I just went, "Oh, shut the fuck up!" Like, which I'm sure, as you know, from like my sunny disposition on stage, like the joyous kind of like stuff I do, just suddenly switch me like, shut the fuck up. Like, I don't think him or the audience saw it coming. And thankfully it was enough of a misdirection that the audience laughed. And then with reviews, like, I've had like acting reviews before that have luckily all been pretty glowing. Like, if anything ever, like there was only like one thing once, but that was more of like the way I'd been directed than anything towards me personally. I don't think, like, I like to think that I won't pay much attention to reviews because I feel like with comedy, the only feedback you really need is the crowd. Like, if they're laughing, then you're doing great. If they're not, then like you're not. And I quite like that simplicity. So I don't know if I would want to read a review and ruin that thing that I have going for me. And also, again, after an industry with like dance teachers yelling at you, like, bring on the hecklers, man. Like, I'm not, you think that's gonna destroy me? Like, it's like, joke's on you. Like, this isn't even what I wanted to do. Like, I just feel like I have a bit of an armor after so much of like the fuckery of musical theatre and the acting industry. So it's good in a way to have that.
You talked about shows that you wanted to see at the Fringe, and although you talked about obviously music and theatre, are you still able to watch comedy in the sense that you're not analysing what they're doing with the jokes? You are able to enjoy it at face value and just sit back and laugh?
I think so. I think especially if I see comedy that's very different to mine. Yes. Like again, Nick Everett is a very good example. Like, he's like always such a surprise and such a joy to watch. I've never laughed at a comedian more. So yeah, I think weirdly, like, I'm actually quite difficult to make laugh. Like, I'll sit there and think something's really funny, but it's actually quite difficult to get me to laugh out loud at stuff anyway. So I think maybe I've always been a little bit analytical even before I was doing it. But to the point where I like fake laugh and fake smile at gigs all the time. And my boyfriend said, "You've got to stop doing that. You've got to be honest." But I'm like, yeah, but I'm being supportive. I'm helping. Because in my head I'm like, oh, that's funny. And I'm like, haha, like I wanna like show them that I appreciate it. So I think a big thing as well is that like if I'm going to go watch a comedy show, then like I'm relaxed and with friends and having a drink and like very much able to laugh and have a good time. But if I'm at a gig like quote unquote working and like watching other comedians, I'm usually dead sober. I've maybe like come like I'm not surrounded by necessarily like people who are like my like really good friends, like so it's a different environment. You don't necessarily like laugh out loud at that stuff, though sometimes you do. I don't know, maybe it's bullshit.
What are the most important lessons that you've learned? What philosophies have you developed?
I think what I said before, which is like, if this is all of it, can you be happy? If the answer is yes, then I've won. Yeah. I think, look, if I could do this every day, I could. Like initially, I kind of thought if I make it as a comedian on TV, then I could walk into any musical theatre job I want as like a bit part. And then once I can actually show them I can sing, then I'll like start taking more seriously in that industry. Like that's how my brain works. And like obviously, like if that happens, then like fucking great, sweet, like brilliant. But yeah, if all it'll ever be is like some paid gigs, some unpaid gigs, some even occasional, dare I say it, bringer gigs. Like if it's still fun, then like, yeah, great, I've won.
Thomasin, how can we find out about you and where we can come and see you?
Oh, okay. So, I hope this is still relevant because I feel like I'm going to have to do like a big dive into like my online footprint just before the book comes out. But my handles right now are at Thomasin_London because Lockwood was taken. That handle might change, but hopefully not. Thomasin_London on TikTok and Instagram is where I'm most active. Can add me on Twitter if you like. And I will have a website up soon, so give that a Google. But also, if you want to buy my book, it's called Nan. I think I'm bi. It's sold by Vulpine Press, but you can find it on Amazon. And you can download it for your Kindle. You can buy a book if you like. And I'm also on YouTube, again, like Thomasin_London, or just search Thomasin Lockwood. And yeah, you might see me on some stand-up gigs around the town, who knows, or even on the Sky's latest advert. So yeah, give that a watch, check it out. Give us some love.
And finally, how would you, Thomasin, sum up comedy in a nutshell?
Oh God, anything that makes you laugh. Honestly, I don't want to overthink it. And just bear in mind that might not be the same as the person next to you, but yeah. That's a really like dictionary answer, but I like comedy for its simplicity, not for the but what does it mean to laugh? Like let's just have a good time.
Beautiful. Thomasin, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm honestly honored that you would have me on your podcast, and yeah, thank you so much.